there and welcome to another Doctor Who review. This time it's anniversary month, so what better than to do an anniversary story starring the 5th Doctor. Yes, I'm reviewing the 5th Doctor story, The 5 Doctors, and as always, I have with me the television companion for all classic series reviews. Here's the synopsis. The Doctor's past incarnations are taken out of time by a forbidden time scoop device. The 4th Doctor becomes trapped in the vortex, but the others find themselves, together with a number of their old companions, with the 5th Doctor and his companions, in the Death Zone on their home planet of Gallifrey. Here they face a Dalek, a Yeti, a Quicksilver Rassilon warrior robot, and numerous Cybermen. Also present is the Master, who has been summoned by the High Council of the Time Lords to help the Doctor. It turns out that President Barusa is the mysterious operator of the time scoop. He aims to use the Doctors to breach the defences of the Dark Tower, Rassilon's tomb, so he can enter there and claim immortality. When he does so, however, he is condemned by Rassilon to eternal existence in the form of a living statue. So here we are, the first story that was not being broadcast first in the UK. It only happens once more in the series. This is The 5 Doctors. It is the 20th anniversary story. It was broadcast on the 25th of November, within the Children in Need telethon that went on that year. It is an anniversary story. It does include all the living actors who are the Doctor in one form or another, although Tom Baker isn't there in person. He's more of a filmed excerpts from Shada, and it becomes more relevant what those things are. Those clips are relating to when you see Shada itself. However, at the time, they had never been seen before, so they were put into the story. Interesting romp, nice nostalgic romp, and quite a large cast. Lots of former companions, lots of former Doctors, of course, and a few other guest stars as well. I'm not going to list them all because there's so many. I'm just going to list the main protagonists in here. So that's all the companions that accompany the Doctors initially. None of the Phantoms, although obviously there's Phantoms there, which I'll mention. And I'm also going to mention some of the lead supporting actors from Gallifrey and, of course, out in the Death Zone itself. So overall, I do like this story. I think it's an enjoyable one. It's not the strongest, but it's definitely a very universally written Terrance Dicks plod along, which kind of stretches the 5 Doctors, or the 3 Doctors rather, into something for 5 Doctors. Well, effectively 4, and I think that's probably why it works, because there's really only 4 of the 5 being used here. If there was all 5, I think you would have stretched it too much. I don't think you would have been able to get a lot out of them. The Doctors do get a good screen time as it is. Any longer, I think it would have been a little bit of a problem, to be fair. We'll go through the actors to play the Doctors first, I think. We'll start with the star, Peter Davison, and he is the star of this piece because he is the current incarnation. Nice little turn from Davison. I do enjoy this little turn. I like Davison's character anyway, as a general run, but he's become a bit more settled and placid at this point. He's not as gruff as he would have been in his first series. When I reviewed The Visitation, you know that from my review of The Visitation all that time ago. That was a long time ago. That was over 2 years now. Because I was looking at that the other day when I was doing the Deanstructor stuff and noticed that, and I thought, wow, okay. It's been a long time doing these reviews, but there we go. That's what happens. But yes, so yeah, he does a decent turn. He acts it well. This kind of feigned weakness he has here, but he obviously figures things out quite easily, and the intelligence of the Doctor is there as much as anything else. He figures out obviously that Barusa was behind it after being initially fooled, or apparently fooled, that the Castellan was the big threat. And yeah, he plays off the other 3 Doctors quite well, actually. I do enjoy that. Then we got the 3 guest Doctors who are in there all the way through. You've got Tom Baker, as I say, mentioned in clips, shown in clips. But you've got John Pertwee, the 3rd Doctor. it's Pertwee trying to do a version of his third Doctor. I think it's a kind of in the middle type Doctor. He recognises Sarah Jane, so it must be in the later part of the incarnation. But he, he's using quite a few lines, and he's the most practical of the Doctors as well. You get to see that with the way they use the equipment from the Rassilon Warrior robot, him and Sarah, when they go across and zip line across to the top of the tower. That's that's the ingenuity you expect from him. Then you got Patrick Troughton, who makes his second reappearance as the Doctor, an old Doctor. His first one being, of course, the Three Doctors. This will be the first of 3 appearances for Patrick Troughton. 2 appearances for Patrick Troughton in the 80s. About to say 3, what was the third? 2 appearances for Patrick Troughton in the 80s, and he's having a way over time. He's enjoying it, and you see a lot of the character, the intelligence, and also, of course, the bumbling side as well. Although it's not too bad here. There's more of an intelligence side here. I think probably because he's got the Brigadier, he's got to show that kind of respect there, I think, and that's possibly why he comes across a bit more intelligent than the character that we're used to. Obviously, he's an intelligent character, but he's more bumbling in his own stories. Then we have the First Doctor, played by Richard Hurndall. Obviously, William Hartnell couldn't be part of this because, sadly, he died 8 years prior. And Richard Hurndall does a good turn as the First Doctor. There's elements there, but as a friend of mine from the Doctor Who group turned around and said that Richard Hurndall does a good job of whoever he's playing. But it's not the First Doctor. I agree. It's not the First Doctor. It's a kind of caricature of it. And David Bradley does a better version in Twice Upon a Time, although not quite, obviously, the Doctor that we know from Hartnell. And you can see that from the clip of Hartnell at the beginning when he's saying, "One day I will come back to Susan." Which is quite a nice little tie-in, considering it's Susan he meets up with when he first arrives in the Death Zone with the Dalek in the corridors. Then we've got the supporting cast, or the companions rather. We start off with Tegan, Jeanette Fielding. Time down here, Tegan's narky streaks are kind of tamed here. She's more comfortable in the role now. She doesn't really get too much to do, to be fair. None of them do. Mark Stritson's woefully underutilized with Turlough, and he plays the lines well as he gets, but he's woefully underused. He's standing there in the TARDIS for Susan half the time, which is a shame because he's standing there with one of the worst actresses of the whole thing. Yes, I don't like Susan, as you might have realised in the Deanstructor I played of the Unearthly Child review. Doesn't get any better with the Aztecs anyway, which will be the next Deanstructor in a week's time. So yeah, it's not fun. The role some of the companions have. Elizabeth Sladen does well with the lines she's got. Very simple. But she seems to be the most companion-like, I suppose, in this. A bit inquisitive. Obviously see the fallible side to Sarah as much as anything else. Thing is, obviously, as with any of these companions that are in that aren't the current ones, they're playing characters that they played 10 or even 20 years ago, and sometimes it doesn't quite work. And Caroline Ford's Susan is one of them. I never liked Caroline Ford's portrayal of Susan. I don't think she does it justice. The character itself is interesting once it gets through the grandfather stage, but I've never been a great fan of Susan, never been a great fan of Caroline Ford, and she doesn't really do much with the material she's got, like she did with most of the series that she was in. And see that stage trip up when they're running away from the Master and the Master running away from the Cybermen after the Doctor and the Master confront each other. Oh my goodness. Oh, what a bad trip up that was. It was terrible, horrible, really bad. Nicholas Courtney, though, solid, strong, dependable turn. This is the second time, obviously, Courtney's made appearance in a year. He plays the Brigadier with all the usual panache, although they obviously put on the fat. And this is the only character that really has any growth here. This is the character where he turns around and says, "I'm getting too old for this," when he's running with the Doctor away from the time scoop initially, and there's aspects there you can tell that that the Brigadier is more retired, and he's actually probably the more natural portrayal here of the companions, of a more natural progression to something a little bit older, which all of them are, of course. Then we've got a turn from Anthony Ainley, who does a very good turn here as the Master after his last 2 appearances in Time Flight. God forbid us, and The King's Demon, which he was half decent with, but it's not the best story in the world to go with, I suppose. He actually plays it with quite a Delgado-esque vibe at the beginning, and then I like the fact that obviously he's enjoyed it. I think he's loving the role at this point. You can see he's enjoying the part, the way it's been played at this point, and I think it's quite a warm characterization of the Master. Obviously, he goes back into his faux villainy later on when he feels cheated, which I can understand in that case. But he's an interesting portrayal here. Certainly, not the I wouldn't say the Master's enjoying himself as much as he is in Trial of the Time Lord, which you've just obviously seen reviews for. But I would say he is certainly one of the better performances of Ainley. Ainley's good when he is in disguise, and Ainley is also, well, apart from Time Flight, he's usually good when he's in disguise, and he's usually good when he gets the Master to be the Master instead of being the scheming half-wit, or has been, that he is in some of them. When the Master's actually used his own devices, Ainley's quite effective as an actor for it, but there's a couple of instances in the series that Ainley doesn't come across like that, and he comes a bit too manic, and this isn't one of them. It's quite a restrained performance, which I quite enjoy. Then we've got the High Council, so we've got Philip Latham, who is Barusa, an interesting grumpy Barusa, archetypal villain. He doesn't quite twirl his moustache, but he does kind of twirl his cane a little bit, I suppose, and the way he's chewing the scenery a little bit in here. You've then got Paul Jericho returning as the Castellan for the second time after Arc Infinity, and Paul Jericho actually puts a good turn in here. There's not much for them to do, of course. This is the thing. Most of these actors are here for a couple of lines. They do what they can with them and move on. Same with Dina Sheridan, to be fair. She does the same with Flavia, although obviously that she is the only of the one of the High Councillors that we see that's actually left after all the machinations that go on here. And she plays a decent turn. You can see why Flavia became effectively Lord President in some of the latter, some of the print media and things like that. She effectively is the Lord President after the Five Doctors, effectively. Then you've got David Banks, who plays the Cyber Leader. This is the second occasion he's played the Cyber Leader. He'll play it 2 more times in the series, and it's a solid performance. You've got Rassilon, played by Richard Matthews. Now, I prefer the original transmitted variation of Rassilon than the one that you get in the special edition. The special edition one kind of muffles things a bit and makes them too... I prefer the original. I think it's more grandiose and works better than the special edition version. I actually watched the original transmitted version when preparing for this review. I like the special edition one with some of the effects, but I prefer the transmitted version for the overall feel, because it just works better, I feel, than what you get elsewhere. And then one other I'll note is the Raston Warrior Robot, played by Keith Hodiak. Interesting little device. It's kind of working on the kind of faceless android sort of idea that you got the year before in Earthshock, but a silver one that's so cool, so ninja, and actually a great addition to the mythos of Doctor Who monsters at the time. And the fact that it can bludgeon a whole Cyberman squadron as easily as it does just shows its power overall, and it is a good little turn there that's done. And I quite enjoyed it. You've got the appearances there of Richard Franklin playing Captain Yates, and you've got the appearance of Caroline John as Liz Shaw, Fraser Hines playing Jamie, and of course Wendy Pabry playing Zoe. The only one that really doesn't look like they've aged is Wendy Pabry. She still looks as young as she was there, which is quite amazing considering that. But the others do look a little bit older with the characters they're playing. Of course they would do, just because of the whole situation here. But it's quite fun. It's quite nice little cameos there from those characters. And of course you've got the clips from Sharda for Lalla Ward and Tom Baker's noted appearances in the story. But then we go on to the music. Peter Howell, and this is one of Peter Howell's last musical entries into Doctor Who. He does 2 more, I think it is. 2 more, maybe 3, I can't remember. But it's actually one of the more understated ones for Peter Howell. Peter Howell can either be one or two things. He can be grandiose, or he can be completely peeps and parts. And this is more peeps and parts, but it works. You've got that little do 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 do, or whatever it is you get with the kind of synths going through when the Cybermen are climbing up through the mountains and that in the Death Zone and wandering about. I love that. I love that there. The kind of stings are on there. There's not really a musical score here. You've got obviously the screech that goes along for being in the Death Zone, and it is more atmospheric here. There is no kind of score, and it actually works better for it not having an overall score here. It's just kind of incidental more than anything else. There's no actual score there, which works better with Howell's scoring. Peter Moffat, I think this is actually the darkest lighting that Peter Moffat's done. The lights turned down in the hallways going into the main chamber of the Dark Tower, and his direction on location is pretty solid as well. There is the overlet scenes in the council chamber, and of course in the main area itself. But he appropriately lights it for once. Peter Howell's got a very bad habit of lighting over lighting, but he does a good job here, and the direction is actually pretty solid. Considering the nature of the script and how it's all put together, he actually does a solid job of it. Speaking of the script, is Terrance Dicks. Now, there's really only two writers I find that could actually have done this: Robert Holmes and Terrance Dicks. Terrance Dicks, of course, was there to help along Bob Baker and Dave Martin's Three Doctors script back in 1973. If what I understand, I think Terrance Dicks did rewrite quite a bit of it as well. But he did, it's an interesting writing style, and obviously he's got to get four disparate parts of the story to match together, and the fact they're all going to a central point from different locations is actually an interesting little device, and I like that. I think it works quite well, and all the Doctors come in different ways. Ultimately as well, the Fifth Doctor comes in via transmit, the Third Doctor comes in via the top of the tower, second down the bottom of the tower, and the First Doctor via the main entrance. So they all have different ways of coming in, and there's different plot points to get around it, which really work. And I do like the way it's written together. It's not the strongest story in the world, but Terrance Dicks is very good at putting together plots and making them work, and this one does. So overall, I like this story. I think it's more or less take your brain out and enjoy. There's not really much depth to it. It is supposed to be fan service at the end of the day. It's not much depth to it. The casual viewer doesn't really get much from it. It's not one you can dissect a lot and deep into, really. The interesting bit is all the different actors that make appearances. That's the interest to it. So it's one of these ones you can just watch on a kind of simple basis. So it's kind of like a halfway house for me. It's a little bit better than halfway house, but I give this story 3.5 TARDISes out of 5. Now, let's go and see how the Five Doctors fits in with the rest of the review so far. The Five Doctors fits in at 3.5 TARDISes alongside the Aztecs, the Leisure Hive, Vengeance and Varos, the War Machines, Amy's Choice, and the whole of the Trial of the Time Lord. At the top still is 6 stories with 4.5 TARDISes out of 5. The Happiness Patrol, Inferno, The Day of the Doctor, The Caves of Androzani, Tomb of the Cybermen, and Dalek. That's it for now. Thank you very much, guys, for watching as always. If you like this review and you want to check out other ones, check out the top corner there for more reviews. And then we got the finger wrong this time, but there we are, it's just about right. And leave me a comment down below what you think about the Five Doctors, what your review and thoughts of it are. Next time is a Streamstructor. I hope to join you on the 1st of December. We'll have the second Streamstructor. Thank you for everybody who watched the first. Please look out for that. 4 PM GMT next Sunday, UTC plus 0. And I post a video every Sunday at 4 PM GMT, UTC plus 0. And as I say, Streamstructor next week. So hopefully you can join me for that. If you like this video, don't forget to like it and share it with the hashtag teamstructor. And if you like this channel as a whole, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and hit the notifications bell so you know when a new video comes out. Until next time, thank you guys for watching as always, and I'll see you later.